Okay. The material here is from Rabbi Rapoport's book, forward by Lord Jonathan Sacks, and it's from Chapter 7, Procreation and Parenthood. He has written much more deeply than this, much more deeply than just the parts I've taken out, and I've had to simplify the use of heavy language. So if I've not done a good job at portraying the full picture the way he intended it, I hope he forgives me. However, I feel that these are the main points. Very briefly, let us touch on the idea of adoption and raising children for the homosexual person. The child has to come first. Halachic authorities have never been comfortable with methods of procreation outside the traditional family nucleus. The various procedures like sperm donation, impregnation, and host mothering are fraught with considerable halachic and ethical quandaries. All the details on this subject can be explored in Jewish medical ethics. There are three partners in the formation of the child, our sages tell us. The Holy One, blessed be He, the Father and the Mother. God Almighty invested into the laws of nature that a child has a biological father and mother. He ingrained into the very fabric of mankind that a person develops a bond with his genetic and blood parents and family. God instilled in each of the parents the special qualities they require in order to foster the growth of a physically and emotionally healthy child. To plan to bring up children any way other than a male biological father and female biological mother who are married to each other is not in keeping with the ideal that God implemented in his world for the benefit of his creatures. And now for marriage. To begin with, it is important to reiterate the difference of a person who, even if he mainly experiences homosexual desires, has some interest in a heterosexual relationship, and the subject of this piece, a confirmed homosexual. The considerations proposed are primarily, although not exclusively, relevant for the confirmed. Someone with even a small degree of heterosexual interest may have more of a reason to be optimistic about the possibility of marriage than the confirmed homosexual would. There may be circumstances where he does not have to fulfill the mitzvah of peru urvu in practice. Jewish law teaches about the amount of effort one needs to put in to fulfill a positive commandment. We learn that one may not need to expend more than a fifth of their financial wealth in order to fulfill a mitzvah. Even though the teaching is about money, the principle has been established that one need not give away everything in order to fulfill a positive commandment in general, including health hazards and considerable trauma. So the halachic mandate to fulfill the mitzvah of marriage does not apply in circumstances where considerable, prolonged, and inestimable suffering may be caused as a result. Incurring such pain is equivalent to the spending of more than a fifth of one's possessions. Whilst it is true that the positive commandment to procreate is treated more severely than many other mitzvahs, several contemporary authorities have suggested that, insofar as the above-mentioned parameters are concerned, the commandment to procreate is no different. In light of the forthcoming considerations as well, it may in many cases be concluded that the confirmed homosexual is not required to get married. A person with an exclusive gay disposition could experience much trauma and agony, if not depression, when living with a lifelong heterosexual partner. This can be contrasted to a heterosexual man living in a homosexual relationship. If someone lacks the drive, if not the capacity for affectionate and meaningful intimacy with a woman, it would not ordinarily bode well for the psychological and emotional health of that person and his partner in life. Furthermore, if the homosexual finds heterosexual intimacy positively repulsive, as some homosexuals do, in light of the above-mentioned criteria of the effort required to fulfill a commandment, the halacha would not ordinarily demand of him that he should embark upon a relationship that is likely to be fraught with suffering. It is emphasized that upon marriage, a man undertakes the obligation to provide for his wife's material and emotional support. The duty to provide the emotional security afforded by meaningful intimacy is written into the very marriage contract as an essential component. In the vast majority of cases, it is unlikely that the gay husband will be able to honor his commitment to his wife's conjugal rights, even if he were able to have intercourse with her in a mechanical fashion. It would therefore be wrong for him to enter the institution of marriage with the knowledge that he could not gladden his wife in the manner required by the Torah as an integral part of the marriage relationship. Even if a man were confident that he would be able to fulfill his duties towards his wife and was ready to undertake such a challenge, he would be obliged to be honest with his prospective spouse about his sexual orientation. This would apply even if he had never acted upon it. It is unlikely that a woman would willingly and knowingly enter a marriage with a person whose sexual and affectionate sympathies lay exclusively with members of his own gender. Even if he were to find a willing partner for such a marriage, she would likely be unaware of the far-reaching complications of such a long-term relationship. In Jewish law, the wife is allowed to give up physical intimacy after marriage, which is written in the contract. A declaration on her part that she doesn't mind being sexually neglected may not be demonstrative of her true feelings. Halachic authorities have cautioned that sometimes statements of giving up of rights in this area may not reflect her genuine feelings. She may perceive that her husband may not desire to be intimate with her all the time, so if she gives up her rights for intimacy, it would likely be because she wasn't being true to her feelings. In her subconscious, it may be a way of her avoiding that trauma and humiliation. It is important to note, even if the wife really meant it at the time of their declaration, she may not see the full extent of the complications down the line. Arguably, a woman standing at the threshold of marriage, overwhelmed by excitement, may not be able to appreciate the enormity of the sacrifice she is making when marrying a man who has no sexual desire for a woman. She would not be experientially informed of the consequences of the marriage where that ingredient is lacking. Hence, she will not be in a position to make a responsible decision and commitment by which she would waive her rights to marital intimacy for a lifetime of unknown consequences. She will likely change her mind at a later stage. Jewish teachings emphasize the importance of total harmony between husband and wife during intercourse. Intimacy must only take place when their mental states are clear and the atmosphere is tranquil. In the event that these conditions are lacking, the sanctity and purity of marital intimacy are severely compromised. If a man entertains erotic thoughts during marital intercourse that are disassociated from his wife, it is considered a perversion. It is hence unlikely that in a marital union where one or both partners have an exclusive homosexual orientation, the halachic prerequisites for engaging in intimacy could be consistently met. In addition, there is a very real concern that because the homosexual's desires and urges remain totally repressed in a heterosexual marriage, he might succumb in a moment of desperation to the forces of his natural impulse, which would likely wreak havoc on the marriage. If the case is that he acts out with an anonymous partner, then the possibility of contracting a sexually transmitted disease and transmitting it to the innocent and unsuspecting wife is increased. Likewise, in the event that the gay husband doesn't satisfy the spouse's intimate needs, she might feel neglected and frustrated after a lengthy period of time and tempted to engage in extramarital intimate activities, the consequences of which I need hardly spell out. In light of the above, and at the risk of generalizing, I maintain that a confirmed homosexual may not be equipped for marriage. In the interest of saving himself and his potential partner from untold difficulties and misery, he may be best advised to invest his energies in areas other than raising a family. Every rule has an exception, but it seems clear that in the majority of cases, marriage for the confirmed homosexual would almost invariably entail a violation of at least some of the halachic and ethical principles enshrined in Torah law. Rather than castigating such people for selfishness or egocentricity, they should be commended as people who are noble and selfless in the acceptance of their position. In their awareness that marriage entails responsibility as well as privilege, they are resigned to forego the many joys of married life. Furthermore, some things are actually best accomplished by someone who is not tied down to family obligations. A gay Jew can still make serious contributions. Some religious leaders and counselors apparently naively believe that if a homosexual gets married, his spouse will automatically cure his homosexuality. It is hoped that greater caution on the part of homosexuals and their spiritual mentors gets taken before advocating involvement in a relationship in which they may be committing great injustice and not acting in accordance with the spirit or the letter of the law. It is regrettable that due to sociological, familial, or personal pressure, a homosexual man or woman will often feel compelled to enter into a marriage, unknowingly violating certain ethical principles in Torah law. I understand that many homosexuals very much desire to build a family. They may crave the blessings inherent in a Jewish marriage and the nachas and posterity afforded by children. It is evident that acceptance of life as an unmarried person can be difficult and may be demoralizing. The knowledge that one is unable to build a faithful Jewish home is undoubtedly painful for those men in the unenviable situation who desperately wish to have children. In this, they share the inner torment that so many heterosexual men and women endure when discovering that they are unable to raise a family for whatever reason. Rabbi Aaron Feldman, Dean of Yeshivas Be'er HaTorah in Jerusalem, is a noted authority in the field of Jewish values and ethics. He writes, "Family and children are important in Jewish society, but one who does not have these need not feel that he is not a full-fledged member of the community." The verse in Isaiah 56, verses 3-5, which is read by Jews all over the world on every public fast day, is addressed to the homosexual. "Let not the Saris, who is physically unable to have children, say, 'I am a dried-up tree.' For so saith God to the Sarazim, who keeps my Sabbath, who choose what I desire, and who keep my covenant. I shall make them in my house and within my walls a monument, a shrine superior to sons and daughters. I shall render their name everlasting, one who will never be forgotten." To sum it up, divine providence guides every individual and helps him discover his mission in life and how he is to accomplish it. One who is equipped with the characteristics necessary for married life has an explicit commandment dictating his direction in life: get married and raise a family. Those who, for one reason or another, do not have the capacity to commit themselves to a long-term heterosexual relationship are exempt from doing so in accordance with the principle Ones Rachamana Patreach. The All-Merciful will exempt one who is unable, and undoubtedly they have a different, but possibly equally important mission in life. Understanding and empathy are of primary importance here. Awareness of one's purpose in life is one thing. To come to terms with it is another. When advising a homosexual person, it is essential that one is sensitive to their trauma and complexes. When he senses that his situation is appreciated and understood, he will then be more open to adopt a positive and optimistic outlook in life, and new avenues and opportunities will open up. Thank you so much, Rabbi Rapoport. Again, if I've left anything out, please feel free to explore. His book, really highly recommended. Bit of a heavy read, but there's a lot in there. Deals, he focuses on the Torah, and that's all that matters at the end of the day. So, yeah.